Okay, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the Board of County Commissioners Workshop. Would you all please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right.
Okay, first thing on our agenda is a update from SHS. Mr. Theine, come on down.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Thanks for the opportunity to give you an update. Travis, you've got some slides.
They seem to be the same. Do you want the PowerPoint or this?
If you have the PowerPoint, that's great. Either way. So as that's coming up, really give you a couple broad updates and then answer any questions that you may have. Talk a little bit about our governance getting filled, some physician leadership that we have, our foundation. I'll talk a little bit about our recruiting efforts and then some of our plans for the upcoming year. Travis, if you want to go to the next slide. So last fall, our board updated its nominating policy and has a really broad group of stakeholders that are involved in presenting nominations to the board. That process completed last fall, and really happy to share that we've got a full board of directors for Southwest Health System. So Shirley Jones, Susan Hodgson, and Dan Valverde are continuing their role as directors. Sean Colloy finished up his term, and Jim Rogers, Evelyn Quigley, Eric Croak, and Jay Wood all joined the board and have been active in our board. So really pleased with that. Travis, the next slide. Our foundation's also been active. So towards the end of last year, they kicked off a fundraiser for a piece of equipment to help with our speech therapy department. In early January, that fundraising got completed, and we're in the process of purchasing the equipment and putting it into place. Once we have that service stood up, we'll be the only healthcare delivery provider in all of Southwest Colorado and northern New Mexico to offer that. So it's a great opportunity not only to help care for people in our own community, but surrounding communities that may need that service through our speech therapy department. All of the open foundation board seats are also filled, so we had a number of community members complete that nomination process, and at their January meeting, we're able to fill the board. So currently, all three of the boards that have some role in supporting Southwest Health System are full.
I got to ask the question because I think it's been a long time, but how long has it been since all of those positions have been filled? Do you have any idea?
I don't know.
Okay.
Haven't looked back in the history book. I'm looking to the future.
I know, I get it, but anyway, thank you.
It's been some time.
It's good to know that they're actually full now, and
Yep.
and that there's a set in place so that everything can move forward. Thank you, I appreciate
Yeah,
that.
you're welcome, and thanks to community members for stepping up and filling those
Absolutely.
roles.
Absolutely.
Last fall, we started working on physician leadership in the hospital, and Dr. Giroux was one of our emergency department physicians who a couple years ago started overseeing the walk-in clinic. She's also been a medical director for the outpatient clinics. In the fall, I asked if she would come stand alongside me and help us understand what a physician leadership role would look like from the administration side or the leadership side of the hospital. We've both been doing some research and both concluded that most hospitals of our size have some part-time chief medical officer role. And so Dr. Giroux and I are in the process of working together to look at what those roles and responsibilities will be. She started acting in many capacities like a chief medical officer would, and later this summer we're going to post a position and recruit into that. But on an interim basis, Dr. Giroux is helping us with that, and certainly hope that she takes up an interest when we formally post the role. But it's been great having a physician sitting alongside the leadership of the hospital day to day. Next slide. So switch gears a little bit to our progress with physician recruiting. The stats up here are a little bit dated now. As of this morning, we were up to 68 total candidates, mostly physicians that have taken some level of interest. We still have more than 15 of those in some type of active discussions. 16 total interviews scheduled since the 1st of October, 15 of which are now completed. We've actually made, I believe it's 11 offers, 10 of which have been accepted. So have a pretty active recruiting program going on. We have another interview scheduled later in March, and as I said, still talking with a number of physicians. The next slide will go into a little bit more detail. So late last year, we presented to our board what we think the demand for services is, how they're being met, not just by Southwest Health System, but by other healthcare providers in the region, and where we felt like we wanted to target our recruiting efforts this year. And so what you'll see are the specialties and numbers that we're actively recruiting for. So family medicine OB, we'd like to recruit in 2 physicians, a family medicine physician who can provide pediatric call in the hospital, 2 internal medicine physicians, a hospitalist, podiatrist, general surgeon, and then some of our emergency department physicians come from out of the area, and we'd like to have somebody locally who's a part of the community. So the darker green are where we have a signed contract in place, the little dots on the left under the status. The light green are where we have a letter of intent signed and we're just working through the contracting, and then the amber color is where we're still actively recruiting. So you can see we've got a family medicine OB provider that we're anticipating starting in the fall. Her contract just got signed at our last board meeting, so we'll be welcoming her. Dr. Moore is an internal medicine physician who started with us on an itinerant basis in the fall, and she's agreed to stay on permanently. So we're excited to have her. And then we have a letter of intent signed with a family medicine physician who will do inpatient pediatrics, an emergency department physician, and then we also have a podiatrist who signed his letter of intent. So again, busy recruiting season for us. So switching gears and looking to what we have planned for 2024, what this is showing is the percentage increase by different services that we offer that we expect to attain in 2024. And I'll comment on just a couple of things. So births looks like a 20% increase. We finished 2023 with somewhere between 120 and 130 deliveries for the year. The low end of kind of average for us is around 140. The high end is around 180 deliveries. Usually we're somewhere around 150, 160. That 20% increase puts us at about 140 or a little over 140. So the low end of a normal year for us ought to be very attainable if members of the community seek care in our hospital. Our swing bed program has been growing for a number of years. So if a patient is admitted to the hospital, the acute part of their visit is over, but they may need some extended rehab or IV therapy before they go home. We can transition them into another status in the hospital. It's referred to as a swing bed program. About a year ago, we were seeing on average 3 to 4 swing bed patients at any given time. We've been growing our rehab department to be able to take care of more patients as opposed to having to transfer them out of the community. So currently we're staffed to where we can have 5 or 6 swing bed patients in the hospital at any given time, and we expect that that's going to drive that growth in swing bed patient days, and we're already seeing it in the first part of the year. The physician visits, the RHC visits and specialty visits, if you put those together into one bucket, it really is showing that what we're expecting in our outpatient physician visits is going to be flat from year to year. When we started working with Southwest Internal Medicine and they had an off-campus office, they weren't part of our rural health clinic where we get some cost-based reimbursement, and so all of their visits were considered specialty visits. When we move them into our rural health clinic, now those visits become part of our rural health clinic visits. And so some of that shift is a movement just from one location to the other. We won't have a podiatrist for a short period of time this year, so that's part of the specialty visits. And then we have 2 general surgeons, not 3, which is going to have some clinic visits be a little bit lower there. We're actually anticipating, if you look at surgeries, we're anticipating that surgery and GI volume is going to remain the same. As we've talked with the 2 general surgeons that are here, they've picked up the operating room time that was being used by the third general surgeon. So we expect the surgical capacity to remain the same. And then a lot of other growth you'll see is just a few percentage points. That's in line a little bit with what we expect, just overall increases in patients getting older, sicker, or people moving to the area. So very realistic plan for the upcoming year. If you go to the next slide, would translate that into what this means financially for the organization. So this was as we were finishing up our budget. The 2023 margin, I think, is what we were forecasting somewhere around late October, November. So we anticipated from an operations side that we would have a deficit of about $1.5 million a year. Stepping up from that in 2024 with the activity that we're forecasting, we expect to collect about $2.4 million more in 2024 than 2025. Our depreciation goes down a little bit, so we have a pickup on a depreciation line, and then you'll see rent utilities with us ending our lease on an off-patient site or off-campus site. Our leases go down. And then interest payments go down as we're paying off some debt. Of that revenue and what we're seeing, over half of that we're investing back into our staff, either through wages, not passing on increased benefit costs to our employees, and then also with physicians and some of the professional fees. So almost 1.3 million of that additional revenue that we're seeing is going to go back into the staff and people doing the work. And then you'll see supplies are going up. Some of that's volume. Some of that's also inflation. We're still seeing high single-digit, low double-digit increases in cost of things like drugs, day-to-day supplies, and other equipment that we purchase, which is certainly outpacing the increase in inflation of revenue that we see. And then a few other line items where there's some smaller increases year over year. We expect that that's going to land us on an operating side with about $1 million or just under $1 million loss from operations. From an employee side, and again, this is starting to get a little outdated. This is through the end of last year. You can see our retention rate has hovered at about 70%. Again, that's really comparable to the latest data we have, 2021, 2022, for retention in healthcare. We'll probably see 2023 data in the middle of 2024, so that'll give us an opportunity to look backwards and compare ourselves to the industry. Not shown here is where we're at with nursing vacancies. We had a high water mark late last year of, I think it was just under 30 vacancies. As of this week, we're down to 16 nursing vacancies. Not all of those nurses have started yet, but they're either hired in or have committed to a start date with us. So over the next few months, as we're able to bring some of those nurses on, orient them to our work in our hospital, we'll be able to further reduce the contract labor expense associated with nurses traveling in.
When did you start out there last year?
In earnest, 1st of September, a little before. Couple just fun things to share. We have an employee of the month every month. In December, our employee of the month is a nurse who's been with us for just under a year. When we got some of the comments about the work that she had done, it reflected not only the great care she was providing inside the hospital, but just caring for our patients and all their needs. So we had a patient that was still admitted to the hospital. She was on shift, and the patient was really concerned about one of their pets at home, and there was nobody there to take care of their dog and make sure it was fed and watered. And so at the end of Kelly's shift one day, she said, I'm going to go home and take care of your dog and make sure everything's taken care of, and drove over to the person's house, took the dog out for a walk, made sure that they were fed and watered and taken care of, and made sure our patient knew that so that they didn't have to worry so much about some of the things that were important for their life while they were getting care in our hospital. And then we also have a leader of the quarter. So every quarter we recognize one of the leaders in the hospital. Rebecca is the executive chef. So if you come in either as a patient or come and eat in our cafeteria, she oversees all the food that's prepared and delivered in and around the hospital. One of her goals was to become an executive chef by a certain age. She actually had a bet with her dad as to whether or not that would happen. And through her employment at Southwest Health System, she was able to attain that. Her dad actually came to the day that we recognized her, and he said that he was calling in on his bet to have her pay up for actually getting there faster than she thought. So it was fun to celebrate with both of them recently. And then
And I will comment just real quick too, because I actually seem like I'm out there more often than I care to mention, but I stop in there all the time and eat lunch.
Food's great.
Because it is great. It's good. So, Rebecca, kudos. Good job.
Thank you. I'll pass that along to her.
Yeah.
The last slide I'll share is just our continued activity on being prepared. So the two photos that are here are from sometime late in January. Our OB surgery department and physicians all got together to drill and practice their work in the event that we had a preemie baby or kind of an emergency related to birth and delivery. We never want that to happen. There's a lot of things we don't want to have happen, but we continue to prepare for those things so that if we're called upon, we'll be ready. So like I said, there's the pictures here include a number of the nursing staff from our family birthing center, OR staff, scrub techs, and then some of the physicians, both from our emergency department and the operating room. Those are the updates I've got. Happy to answer questions or talk more about things that are on your minds.
What keeps you up at night? There's a lot, but I'm sure one thing might stick out.
I've shared this. There's two things that keep me up at night. One is the unfortunate event that we had with an officer being shot. I worry, just in society today with our kids in school and other things, that we could have a mass casualty event in our community, and it would be highly disruptive, not just for the people involved, but to all the services. So that's one thing that keeps me up at night. The other is somebody getting into our information systems. We rely on computers connected to the outside world to have up-to-date information on patients, to get a bill out the door, to pay our vendors. And so those are two things that keep me up at night. We've got a great staff, great physicians that take care of the day-to-day, but if one of those two things happens, it's highly disruptive.
Very good. Commissioner?
No, I'm just glad to see these books all full.
Yeah.
Yeah,
operating
that's-
and keeping track of things.
That's encouraging.
I don't,
Very
it's
encouraging.
measured in years of how often that the board was not full.
It wasn't in months, I know that.
Yeah, it was,
Yeah.
I mean,
And-
it got down to, I think it got down as far as 3 members, maybe 2 at one time.
The community's been wonderful in the time that I've been
Yeah.
here, engaged, interested in the hospital, stepping up to fill roles again, not just the 3 boards. As we've recruited physicians in and had them come out to visit, I was just sharing with Tom Burris, a lot of families are interested in the school. We've had members from the school districts helping with community tours. The mayor of Cortez personally gave a tour of the community late last year. So it's really common for community members to be involved in our recruiting beyond participation on the boards. And when we have folks come out and see that kind of engagement and involvement, it's really easy to make an offer and have somebody say, when can I start?
Good. I don't have any specific questions at all. I think, Joe, I see you frequently enough. I ask what I need to ask, and I see a lot of the doctors that are around too. So thank you. I appreciate it. And it seems like we're headed down a path of.
We're all working together. We're not out of the
Yeah,
woods, and it's
exactly.
not easy, but I really see everybody working together.
Working
and
together
that's
to get
great.
to a common goal, to get things fixed. I appreciate it.
A lot of positive progress. I really do.
Thanks for all of your support and the county support. We appreciate it.
You bet.
Have a good
All right.
afternoon.
Thank you.
Joe.
Thank you.
Okay, next we have a presentation for a GOCO Mesa School project, which is Great Outdoors Colorado, acronym for GOCO. Mr. Burris, do you want to come on down too, just so you have a mic in case Christine Fischer has anything else that you might want to provide? With that, Christine, go ahead.
We picked you up somewhere, but I can't hear you.
Okay.
Huh.
Any better?
It's probably on our end.
Okay.
Can you put your mic to your computer, Travis, and have her just speak through that?
Is that any better?
Try it now.
Try now, Christine.
Can you hear me now?
Barely.
Can you guys hear her?
Christine, I'll call you.
Okay.
I mean, I can hear her, but.
Yeah, it's
for
real
faint.
weak.
Christine, I'll call you.
Okay. I'm gonna call you back.
I think she said she'll call you back, Mr. Burris.
Technology.
Let's stick a phone and a mic. You may have to mute your computer.
Okay, here we go.
How is that? Can you guys hear me now?
A little bit better.
A little bit better.
There we go.
You have to turn it on. Okay, you're on, Christine.
Okay, great. I did send in a slide presentation, Travis. I don't know if you could put that up. I cannot see the screen, but I can still just kind of walk you through slide by slide if you can let me know if you have those up.
What's up?
Okay, it's up, Christine. Go ahead.
Okay, great. So first and foremost, thank you so much for the opportunity to provide you with an update on the GOCO sponsored project. It was sponsored by Montezuma County. We're pleased that the project is now complete and we want to present a final report to you today. The project was completed at Mesa Elementary Playground. It was previously approved for Mana. We'll go to the next slide, Travis.
Okay.
Okay, this details for you the project timeline. This has been a long-running project. Back in January of 2020, Mana Elementary applied for GOCO funding with sponsorship by the Montezuma County Commissioners. Thank you for that sponsorship. The application was successful and awarded in March of 2020. The grant was what was called a schoolyard initiative improvement grant, was capped at $110,000. Mana Elementary did receive the full amount possible. During 2020 and 2022, due to COVID, no project progress was made. And in March of 2022, a GOCO staff extension was approved to provide more time to complete the project. Shortly after that, there were some changes made at the school district and consolidation and closure of Mana Elementary. So okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, great. I disconnected so we wouldn't have feedback. So Mana Elementary was closed and there was a consolidation of other elementary schools. We went back to GOCO and asked if it might be possible to shift the funding that had been awarded to Mana over to Mesa Elementary, as the majority of the students in the life skills program were moved over to Mesa. They asked us to submit a modification, which we did, and that was approved in October of 2022. So long-running project, but a lot of success in keeping it moving. So for the next project, or next slide, the goals for the project modification really were pretty simple. Number one, allow the funds that were originally awarded to Mana Elementary to be redirected to serve Mesa. Number two, to build a safe ADA compliant playground and international recreational hub at the school. And then number three, which is really exciting, add the Lohr Foundation as a financial partner for the project. For the next slide, The results of our modification, I'm proud to say, we were able to get the modification from GOCO allowing us to shift that funding. We built a safe ADA compliant playground and intergenerational recreational hub at the school this past summer. I have the date wrong on that, I think. It was built last summer. And we did add Lore Foundation as a project partner. They brought an additional $25,000 forward to the project as a community supporter of this project. The playground is open. It's being enjoyed and utilized by the children and also the community. The next slide is the initial rendering of the project as we presented to GOCO in our modification request, showing that there was old equipment to be removed, where the new equipment would be placed. Just kind of, giving an idea of the layout of the school and the improvements. On the next slide, we have another rendering that goes into a little more detail about the type of equipment that was going to be added to the site. The next slide shows the completion of the project. The next slide after that shows children playing on the completed playground, which is really such a joyful thing for us to see. And lastly, for the project closeout, we just simply request approval and signature on the final reporting paperwork to GOCO. We did provide a copy of the final report to your staff to review and approve. Once that is done, we'll send it to GOCO. Upon GOCO's approval, they will pass funds to you. We'll ask you to please pass those on to the school district. And we'd like to thank you so much for the support of this project. And at this time, I'd like to turn it over to Mr. Burris. And Travis, if you want to put it back to the previous slide with the kids playing on the playground. I know that Mr. Burris has seen firsthand the improvements that this project has made to the community, and I would love to hear from him as to his thoughts around the project and what he's been hearing about the project from the kids and community.
You give a lot of kids a lot of good places to play, and they come to school better, we think. So we have these kind of projects both at Kemper, out at Lewis Areola, and then one at the middle school, and they all attract a lot of kids. Part of our deal with GOCO is we've got to leave it open to the community, and we do that until sunset, and then we shut the gates. So we try to be responsive to the community, a resource for the kids, and again, the kids have a great time on it.
So in the summertime, is it open
They are,
all
yes.
until sunset again?
And of course, our proximity to some of the places is, we don't want people on there after dark.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
I mean, that makes sense.
My grandkids took me to a book fair over the weekend at Kemper School. And as soon as we were finished there, it was playground time. It's impressive out there.
It is.
Yeah.
And
Makes a jungle gym look pretty thin.
Yep. And you go over there anytime during the day when they're having recess, and that thing is just, it's like ants on there. It's crazy.
It is.
They love it.
And the Kemper project was funded in partnership with the Colorado Health Foundation. We were able to bring them on as an additional partner, separate from GOCO. Like GOCO funding kind of stands alone, but we were able to build on the improvements that GOCO made. So GOCO saw and built what you can see in the photos here. We had additional funding from the Health Foundation to build out more amenities for the Mesa site, and also then to pay for all of the improvements at Kemper. So the district has really been blessed with great foundation support, and I know that Mr. Burris has been building a very strong relationship with the Health Foundation and has some a really good pulse on what the community needs moving forward and how to look for partnerships to help bring some of that to fruition beyond playgrounds.
Well, great. I know that, we did this in 2020, and it's been so long, 2020, after, the COVID set in. I actually had forgotten about this until, you know, this came across our packet this week, so, yeah,
Well, thank you for your support in it.
yeah,
You bet.
you bet. And the one out at Louis Areola looks great, too.
It's,
Yeah,
that's impressive out there.
Yeah.
It is.
Looks great.
it is.
And that, I know, was a big deal, too, when we were dealing with that one. So, yeah, looks great. As long as the staff has reviewed it, I don't see that there's any issues with doing the final signature. I know that that's what you have to close it out. Unless, Commissioners, you have any other questions at all?
Looks good.
Okay,
All right.
all right.
Thank you, sirs.
Thank you, Mr. Bruce. Thank you,
Thank you.
Christine. Have a great day.
You as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Next up, we have here's another one that we've been talking about since, I think, 2020. Another
Yeah.
Homeland Security grant for our generator project. Mr. Spratlen and Mr. Dobry, maybe we're going to get some good news on this one, too.
It's arrived.
Yeah, we do have good news, you're correct, this has been a long time. Oh, this one might be running out of juice. There we go. This grant has been a long time in the making. I think it was originally applied for in January of 2022 and then revised late in 2022. The total grant amount is $154,249.60. The county match is $16,236.80. And this is for generators at five county facilities. The only other thing I really wanted to highlight, because I know you guys are pretty familiar with this because we've been talking about it for 2 years, but that in addition, while the county match is $16,000, there's county labor and then management and admin that we will be getting paid as part of that grant. So it's the actual match is pretty close to zero. Like it's basically paid for.
We got a special deal, 90-10.
Yeah.
And the timeline's the same. We didn't, without trying to put in all the new planning paperwork to make it 3 years, it's now 2 years, but we can do it in 2 years. So we're fine. Just get her done.
So as far as the generators, getting them here, do we have any kind of, is
Well,
that still way out? Or is
It's
that-
still going to be. I mean, we'll have to do an RFP to order
Right.
for ordering the generators. I think just in general on supplies, it isn't like it was 2 years ago. I think we've got a little tighter than it was. I mean, I know
a little better opportunity
things
to
were
actually
in
get a
that like
generator.
year
Yeah.
zone before, and I think we're probably in a
It's gonna be a
shorter
little quicker.
timeline than that. Yeah.
We were thinking 8 months, 12 months. I think we're looking at 4 to 6 maybe, but we got to see what we get back on the RFPs.
Sure,
But
sure.
we're just going to get them all in, and then we can knock out those pads and
Yeah.
go pretty quick.
Good. Another good win for the county that
Yeah.
just backup generators for all the buildings that we were talking about.
Yeah.
And obviously, we got this one done here for admin because of frying all of our IT stuff. That one had to happen first, but
Yep.
now we can get all these other ones taken care of, and it's a good process and a good deal. Thank you, guys.
Be good.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, finally.
Well,
Hey, all good things come to those
all
who
good
wait.
things come to those who wait. You're right. It just seems like it's a struggle waiting for so long.
Don't go there.
I'm not.
Hey,
Well, perfect. Again, thank you, guys.
all right.
Maybe by the end of this year, we'll have them all in place.
Yeah, it'd be nice. Yeah.
10 months,
Yeah.
something to shoot for. All
Yeah.
right.
Good.
Thank you all. Appreciate it.
Appreciate it. Mr. Dobry's up again.
I'll stay up.
Mr. Dobry, I don't see your sidekick, so do you want to wait or?
We can wait if you want. I'm happy to do whatever works for you guys. I mean, I can present it as well, but let me see.
Well,
If you want to
Shane's
move
not
on to the
here
next
either.
thing, I can go see if
We
see if
can,
Wanda's
we
here.
can move on.
Okay.
We can jump across it. So the JBBS grant, we're going to skip down. The next discussion as it's related to the pickup for the road and bridge is going to be pulled off of this week's agenda and be put back on next week's agenda. It
Yes, sir.
Wasn't quite ready. So we'll go down to the discussion as it's related to Cassell with Miss Hargraves. And I see you're entering the room right now, so we're going to put you on the spot.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
How's everybody doing?
Great.
How was the legislative session?
So
I don't think we have that much time.
it was, I can tell you your group take up that first part of Friday morning, pretty much the entire portion of it. However, there were a lot of bills to discuss this time, and I will update you on all of those. I can do that after the meeting. And you can also look at the bill table from CCI and see how we voted on all of them. But I had send you a couple emails in regards to the first couple that were voted on. But it was long. And, you know, here's the other deal is that all the big 5 counties bring all of their directors in our room.
Yeah.
So that we actually have people that are doing the work, that are professionals at it, to actually advise us too, which is helpful. But then it becomes, how do I want to say this, Travis? You were there on Zoom.
Taxing.
It becomes a little
Literally or
wordy.
figurative?
A little wordy.
A little bit of both.
But we did get through them. It took us pretty much all morning to get through those. I think we had 8 or 9 bills that we had to vote on. But we got through them all.
Well, good.
Okay.
So let's talk about Cassell. So the reason this is coming up, well, it's kind of a variety of reasons. When I initially started working here, I was under the impression, it came to my attention that we were using.
Real quick, Kelly, you might either want to turn your mic on or, there you go.
Better? We were using 6 different systems to do various HR, accounting, accounts payable, accounts receivable, writing checks. And it certainly is something that we needed to remedy. And so now, as we move forward and we want to use ClearGov and enter our information into that, I did some research. I want to learn more about how to adequately use ClearGov. Delta County also uses ClearGov with their Department of Social Services and Cassell. And so last week I spent an hour on the phone with their Director of Social Services and their Director of their county finances. And I really think Cassell's going to meet all of our needs. We're going to be able to use their ledger, do their HR, do 100% reporting in their time clocks. We're going to be able to manage benefits, do our payroll, do our vendor tracking. Everything that we need will be in one system instead of the 5 that we use. We still have to use CFMS, which is the Colorado Financial Management System required by the state. But it will cut out 5 other systems that we're using. And one of those hasn't been updated in, I say 6 years, Jim McLean says 12. So when it crashes, that's it. That's all there is to it. And so I'd like to streamline. I also think that it would create some continuity. So you're going to be reading the reports that look just like the rest of the counties coming down from our books. And it's going to upload really easy into ClearGov. Also, this payroll system is going to talk right straight into and upload. Right now we have to export from our payroll system and then import into our ledger, making things even more complicated. So this will streamline a lot of the things that we do and probably save staff a ton of time. I have 2 estimates up there. One is for web-based hosting, which means Cassell's going to own it. Everything would be based on their web. They're going to provide updates. All of those pieces, that includes training, will go to them, and that's that $28,000 bid you see there. And then the monthly hosted maintenance and support is $2,368 a month. The other bid is for the exact same setup, and it is server hosted, so we would host it on our servers, And that bid is $75,915. Jim and I have bantered back and forth. Jim McLean and I have bantered back and forth about web server-based versus hosted. I'd like to be able to move forward with the web-based. In my previous experiences managing 30 contracts, we used a web-based software to do our payroll and to process all our budgetary issues. And it went smoothly. We didn't have issues. Our internet doesn't go down a ton. Staff can work from home using this system when they have to. And the bottom is the dollar price. It's substantially different.
$50,000 difference. So I guess I have to ask the question of your bantering back and forth. What does he like it just here on our servers specifically, or is it because a web-based obviously is web-based?
His main concern is that if the internet goes down, we're in a bind, right?
Right.
That would be the same concern here, except for he can help control getting that back on. He also talked a little bit about their help desk. Actually, we talked about it in Travis's office the other day, that their help desk isn't as responsive. So sometimes they'll upload the software and then it puts a lot of kinks on our back end. And they're not always responsive. And I'm, said, well, it wouldn't be any different than if you were hosting it versus them hosting it, as far as us still having to get through to the same IT from Cassell to fix the issue.
So and the reason I'm going to ask all these questions is because Friday there was a lot of discussion on web-based programs from the state for social services. And when they do go down, it stops everybody from being able to do their job. So in other words, they have a whole department that can't do their job, and now they're just stuck. And this happens, it sounded like, Travis, correct me if I'm wrong, but more often than not, and it was not for just a few hours at a time, it was for days at a time.
You hit the nail on the head.
Huge discussion on that. So I realize there's a huge dollar amount difference here, but if we get shut down for 10 or 15 days a year that we can't function and do our job at all, I mean, really, is that the best thing that we can do for our community? Or I'm just bringing it up. And the reason I brought it up is because this was a huge discussion Friday morning.
Either way, though, so I would ask Phaedra or your accounting office how often Cassell goes down, because either way you're looking at the same ramifications. The state does it. On Friday, for instance, CBMS stopped working for 3 hours. All of eligibility staff could do nothing. They couldn't get in the system. They can't do any of their work. It's all on that web server. We experience it in adult protection, in child welfare, in our economic security, in our child support services. Each one has their own state database that's being updated and pushed and goes down. The 237 error in economic security caused thousands, 40,000 people suffered in Arapahoe County alone just getting benefits because of the system glitches. So it's definitely real. What I will say about state systems is I don't think...
Well, I realize it's two different systems. One is the state system that you guys are functioning with. This is Cassell.
It's private.
Which is private. And I don't think we have a lot of concerns with Cassell. I don't think it goes down that often. I'm just... Anyway, it was all web-based, and that was the whole issue, is that the whole web-based throughout the state, the system is broken, and it's got to get fixed somehow.
The trails, I could talk to you about the state systems and the 2 decades that we've been working in 2 versions of Trails and child welfare because they can't figure out how to get it into Trails mod. So we have Trails Legacy, so we do half our work here and half our work here, and everything is a workaround, and it is super frustrating, and that's across the board in every department, every single department. But I suspect that this private, the folks pushing private case management software, they do really good because their software is 10 times better than the state software. But then counties have to pay out of pocket to use an alternative software than the ones that the state, anyways, we could get it. But you're right. I mean, there's validity in that, for sure.
So, this, obviously, the web-based is much cheaper because they already have it set up. Where does this come out of? What budget item, Travis, or is this just a?
This is a day-to-day operation, so it'd come out of our cost
Just
pool,
out
admin cost pool, 80/20.
Okay. All right, I'll stop there. I've asked probably more than I need to ask. I'll let you guys ask some questions.
Just like Joe Theine from the hospital, what keeps him awake is security, penetration of your servers. And have you heard of any difference? Are they both secure?
Yeah, they're both secure. They're going to hold all of that liability, which we like, right?
Yeah.
And the state prefers that we use web-based
The beauty of
platforms.
this is that it does mesh with ClearGov, which makes it
Right.
a lot better for us, for the software that we are using throughout the county, instead of now you guys being on your own little island.
Yeah,
We
we'll all
actually-
there's be some
the same.
continuity. It offers the time tracking. We have to do 100% reporting. So those HR functions that we have to have are in here. It really aligns. It's going to take 4 to 6 months to get up and running, which means hopefully by the time we're drafting budgets, we'll be somewhere for next year. We'll be ready to roll, but it'll take time. And I want to start moving on it.
Recommendations from staff, how's that?
It's going to align right with our financial systems currently.
Yeah.
We're going to get rid of spreadsheets. It'll integrate with ClearGov, with the budgeting software.
It'll make it better for
Highly
us,
recommended.
Yeah.
for the county, the entire county, because then everything is together. Cassell and ClearGov is what we use right now, so.
And the reports will be the same. We won't be reading different reports that we're manually doing right now. You'll get good financial reports right out of the system versus the ones that Lori has to pull up because our systems don't allow her to do it. She has to develop those and add every month.
Okay. Very good.
All right.
All right, moving on to the next one, since you're here. If you guys have no more questions. Okay,
No.
we'll go to the AmeriCorps member application.
Yes, so I wanted to talk to you all about an AmeriCorps member. AmeriCorps is across the country. It's a way for people to serve their communities. It's really service, so they're not an employee, they're serving, and in return they get some credits for college and different advantageous things for them. And so some things that have been percolating since I have been with the department have been the needs for our adult and aging population. We have limited services, we have limited supports for our elderly. We have scenarios where we have really challenging clients. We have challenging clients. We have challenging clients that are denied access to our nursing homes. They're denied access to assisted living. They lose their homes because they can't pay for them, and then people are calling us for an adult protection issue. It is not an adult protection issue that people are homeless, and we don't provide that kind of service within adult protection, but it is a need, and it would be really nice to be able to say, here's what we can do, and here's the services or supports that we can wrap you in. We have other folks who maybe are lonely, have needs that aren't met because they don't have transportation, so they call law enforcement 110 times a month. And then we get an adult protection referral.
Yeah.
There's a need. I don't know what all those needs are. Adult protection is seeing that and hearing that when we have people that are adults that have IDDs or mental illness or substance use issues or homeless or just challenging in their older age.
Or all of the above.
Or all of the above. Our emergency homeless shelter is limited. That 74-year-old who is homeless is on a walker. They can't access our emergency shelter. That's an issue, right? And as a community, we need to come together. So what my proposal is, I'd love to really activate community members and spend a lot of time planning and getting an understanding of what's happening, what exists, what needs to exist, and how we can move together as a community response. I don't have the capacity for that. Adult protection doesn't have the capacity for that. I'd like to put out a proposal to get an AmeriCorps member for 1 year of service, part-time, to do all of that activation, to get community members together, to take notes, to understand what resources do exist, who's doing what, pull in those key players so that we can have a plan of action. What funding do we need? Where can we get that funding? How would that funding look? What exists that isn't being tapped into and accessed, and why not? And provide resources for our aging population, because it's only going to increase. We know that our aging population is growing, and it's going to continue to grow. And right now, Montezuma County is really limited. We really are, and we need a clear understanding of what's happening. And I'd like to apply for one.
So what's the cost associated? Because AmeriCorps basically took care of it, right? Or to a certain degree?
Yeah.
Other than like the housing or something, or what? Bring me up to speed with that again.
Yeah, so there's a site fee, is what they call it. And so the site, if approved, so the application has to go through, if they approve the position, they'll start recruitment. If that position's filled, then it would be, here's your site fee. Last year, the site fees were $8,000 for part-time and $16,000 for a full-time AmeriCorps member, which means they're serving 32 hours or more at full-time. I think for this particular position, we'd be looking for a part-time AmeriCorps member to serve. And so that would be $8,000. Potentially, it could be more. When I talked to Al with AmeriCorps locally, she hadn't put the numbers in stone this year, but didn't suspect that it would be too much higher. I'm going to guess, worst case scenario, it would be $10,000 site fee, and that would be our portion. My intention is, if I apply for the AmeriCorps member, we get the AmeriCorps member, we do the recruitment, we get somebody who wants to fill it, because you don't always fill it. You don't get the right candidates, or they don't have housing, or it just doesn't make sense because they're not making money. It's service, really. And if all of those things and all those stars aligned, then we'd have that $10,000, and I would seek out grant funding to cover that.
Okay. Question?
No, I think it's a service that's needed.
I can remember this conversation that we had the first time, and I want to say it was with the playground, in maybe back in 2020. Housing was the biggest issue, is because they can only pay, and it's a very, very limited amount for their housing, and it has to be then subject to you or whoever. That seemed like that was the biggest hiccup at that point in time, and maybe that's changed.
For seniors?
I'm trying now you're making me go back in time as aging seniors. The aging senior?
Yeah. See?
Prime example.
Anyway,
Yeah.
basically what you're telling us, it's $10,000 and you'll seek grant funding to take care of it. So basically it's costing you nothing out of your budget right now.
Yes, that's the intention. It'll help the community. Lots of players out there. We really need to. I was on the state call. The AAAs across the state are doing tons of things.
Yeah.
And I know they're bigger and they have more funding, but gosh, let's leverage it. And we need to know what we need and what we have in order to draw down what we need.
Which, that would be something you'd probably work with Robert anyway,
Yeah.
as you move forward with that. Okay. I guess I have nothing else.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's,
Okay. All right, Kelly,
Easy peasy.
Thank you.
make that
Thank you.
decision tomorrow. All right. And I will get you that information on where we landed on all those bills.
Yeah, I'd love to see it.
Okay, thanks. All right, Mr. Dobry, come back up, I guess.
We weren't able to get a hold of Wanda. I think she may be out today. So I'm
Okay.
just going to present the jail-based behavioral services grant myself. Should
Sure.
I wait a moment for Commissioner Candelaria to step back in?
If you want to wait, that's fine. If not, just go ahead.
It's up to you.
Yeah, I don't,
Go ahead.
just go ahead.
Okay. This is a renewal of the jail-based behavioral services grant and contract. I guess 2 years ago, it had previously been done regionally. Last year was the first year where Montezuma County was handling it directly as that regional partnership ended. It is, the grant request amount is $314,191.82, and that is divided by, there's a mental health section and a substance use section, which are $164,000 and $149,000 respectively. The only real differences from the previous year is we worked with Phaedra and Wanda to make sure that the rates for any of the staffing that is on the Montezuma County side includes all of our fringe, so that it includes all of the costs of the county and not just the regular hourly rate. And then there's also the admin or indirect costs for the county. So there isn't any match as part of this, and it's the renewal of the existing JBBS grant program. And if you had any other questions, I'm happy to.
This may be, I
So
don't
try
know,
to answer.
Travis might help, but why was the regional portion of this abandoned or we leave or what?
I don't know. I just know that 23 was the first year where Montezuma County handled it individually. In the past, it had been La Plata,
La Plata
Archuleta,
County.
and yeah.
Right.
And then they would dole out the funds from La Plata County, but I think they decided to go county to county.
Yeah.
with
Okay.
These funding.
I don't have anything else.
Okay,
Good programs.
make a decision on it tomorrow.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Robert. All right, which now that leads us to our discussion related to the exemptions for the PSST. Travis, if you want to, oh, I hope you can make it bigger than that for our aging seniors.
You want to borrow my glasses?
No, I've got my own. I don't know if you guys had a lot of time to look at this, and then all of the exemptions that they have here, and then the tables as the other counties has it, as they did it for theirs. But let's open up the conversation. I think, and if you can help us too, Robert, because you had some of the information on the.
And Commissioner, we have Karen and Christina
Hospital.
on Zoom.
Oh, gotcha, okay. Well then, Christina or Karen, do one of you want to go first and kind of walk us through this and what your recommendations might be, and then we'll look at these exemptions and then go from there.
I'm going to defer to Christina because she's the person that's got lots of expertise in this area, so she's the one you need to be listening to.
Okay.
And I think you may be on mute, Christina.
All right, Christina.
Sorry, yes, I would love to, except for the fact I don't have a copy of what exemptions you're picking.
Have you got an email address? We'll
I do.
send you a
It-
slideshow here real quick
I'll
of what
do
we're
it right
looking
now,
at,
Christina.
if you can't see our
It is
screen.
CA Manthey, MANTHEY @gmail.com.
And you guys are just looking off of this list, right?
Yes.
It's just the state exemptions list.
Right.
I mean, I don't think that
Oh,
we've
you're
made-
working off the DR 1002?
Yeah, we haven't made any decisions yet as to
Oh,
what's
okay.
going to be.
I have the
exempted.
DR 1002 in front of me then, so
Yep,
we're good.
Okay.
That's what we're working off.
Okay. I think it's a matter of what do you want to exempt? And you also have to remember when you're comparing to other counties, Montrose, for example, exempts nothing. County. Other counties exempt all kinds of things. So, your goal is to how much money, how do various exemptions affect your county? And then what are you willing to give up for income, basically?
Correct. So let's just start at the top. A, food for domestic home consumption. So this is basically going to the grocery store. Am I correct in that?
You are.
Yes.
So
And as I
unprepared
understand
foods.
your your objective is to tax non-residents in many ways, if I'm correct.
Correct. Correct. The whole purpose is to shift the burden from the property tax owners to everybody, which obviously this would capture everybody, whether you're coming through, whether you're going hunting, fishing, camping, whatever the case may be. If you're coming into this county, then you would be under this as far as part of Section A. So.
Correct. And I'll caveat this. League has a position that we don't believe in putting sales tax on food. Having said that, however, because I would suspect that a significant portion of the traveling public, if they're hunting and camping, they're going to be buying food for domestic consumption, essentially. You will not be taxing that base if you exempt it.
Right.
So you may not achieve your goal in that way.
Correct. And Robert, I'm going to ask you, because the hospital district just went through a sales tax, and what were the exemptions there? If I.
So yeah, and just for the record, I'll let you know, I'm the treasurer of the Montezuma County Hospital District, so I'll give you an answer as that, as opposed to as the county grant writer in this instance.
I'm sorry.
The hospital district exempts everything except Q, which is sales on retail marijuana. And that was in the original ballot language, which was in 2016, and then we didn't make any adjustments when the sunset was removed in 2021. So the hospital district exempts of the state exemptions, exempts all of them except for Q, which is the retail marijuana sales. The state taxes retail marijuana sales separately from this, but if those sales are going on in the county, the district wanted to capture that as well.
So they exempt everything but Q?
All of.
So all of them but Q,
and you can, if you look on page 4 of the.
It brings that up.
Of that form, in the health services district, Montezuma County, you can see we exempt all of them. Q's the only one that we don't exempt.
Did Leslie actually get you some numbers on what that brings in?
She didn't give us direct numbers, but based upon the figures that we got from the .4 from the hospital district with their exemptions, as currently sits at the 1.4, we come up with.
And that's what we've been using, because the hospital district is the only thing in Montezuma County that has a sales tax. So
that's countywide.
That's countywide. So knowing that all of these are exempt other than Q, which we could do the same thing basically, or change it however, but at least we have that number, knowing that exempts everything other than Q. So really looking at this, I mean, I think that's a good option, because I don't think we want to exempt that either.
Well, so because I don't have a document to look at, when you talk about exempt everything, what are you exempting?
So it starts with gas, electricity, other specified fuels for residential use, low volume sales of charitable organizations, farm equipment not including animal identification equipment unless expressly exempted by the city or the county. G, food not including candy and soft drinks sold through vending machines.
No, okay, it's just food sold through vending machines, or food?
Sold through vending machines.
Okay.
Yeah, that would be G. So in other words, if it's in a vending machine, we're not going
Right.
to, it's not going to get taxed.
Okay,
Certain medium and heavy duty vehicle engines, motors, and conversion parts. So, I mean, I'm not even sure what.
And I think Christina could probably clarify this more, but for sales taxes that are collected by the state of Colorado, you're limited to these specific exemptions, because they basically check a box in their database, and that's how it works. So the county would be having the state collect there, so these are the exemptions that you would be limited to. You couldn't exempt something else if you
Yeah,
wanted to.
right.
Yeah,
These are what we have to choose from, correct?
exactly.
Elaine?
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't have to choose them, but these
Exactly.
are your
No, but
options.
we have
Yeah,
these options.
Yep, exactly.
Right. Diapers, incontinence products, and as specified in 39-26-717. Residential energy storage systems as identified. So there's a lot of exemptions there. I would kind of agree with what the hospital district did, but with that, Christine, I'll let you kind of talk over your thoughts on it.
You know, like I said, this is purely choice here. And then what this list doesn't contain is the mandatory items that are exempt from state and local jurisdictional taxes. And that would be things like horse feed, seeds, let me think, it's a variety of things. But these are the ones you have the choices on. And, you know, are you going to have anything that's in space flight that would even come close to being taxed? That's a minor item. I mean, you're not. But, you know, you might want to think about some of these others. Is it in your best benefits of having renewable energy components tax exempt?
Mineral extraction.
Heat pumps. I'm just looking at some of the lists here. Residential energy storage systems. That goes hand in hand with renewable energy components, but you know, this is a choice you need to make for your community, essentially.
Well,
And some of them, you know, low volume sales by charitable organizations. This was to prevent the school children from having to charge sales tax when they do their little fundraisers.
Well, certainly one way you could look at this. I mean, you know, you look at this list, and I mean, there's a couple that seemingly jump out as things that really affect Montezuma County. I mean, the farm equipment, for instance, is one that jumps out to me. You know, you could conceivably choose a couple of these, not choose the rest of them, and then lower the tax rate overall as a result. And I mean, really, it's difficult without having exact numbers in front of you as to what these different things bring in, what this would mean for your total revenue. But I mean, some of these things, like, I mean, it doesn't make a lot of sense to exempt it in Montezuma County, quite frankly. The space flight stuff and some of those things. I mean, what's really gonna affect just the citizens of Montezuma County?
I mean, certainly the food for domestic home consumption, the residential gas and electric usage, and your farm equipment would be the big ones for y'all.
right.
Let me ask you this, if you exempt food, then are you exempting a product that actually you would gain substantial tax revenues on from people that are traveling through town?
Yeah, I think food's a tricky one because, I mean, that's something that a lot of people from outside are purchasing. And so if you do want to take the burden off of property owners, seemingly exempting food wouldn't accomplish that goal.
Yeah, that's kind of how I'm feeling also. So,
I think you can get away from that, but if you want to do the food for domestic home consumption and not do this food one down here, G, because that is basically when you put food there, that's taking all your restaurants and everything else out. If you do it, just do A, not G.
It's only taking vending machines out.
that's just in the vending machines. G is just in vending machines.
And how many vending machines do we actually have in Montezuma County, food vending machines?
I don't think, that's not the way that I
That's not the
read
way
that.
that's worded.
It says food, and it
Food,
doesn't
period.
include candy and soft drinks that are sold through vending machines.
that's
So
right.
that would be food
That's an
that
overall
would be
food
sold
exemption.
in restaurants, those sorts of foods. That's
No,
not,
food
it's not.
sold through restaurants is not something the state gives you an option on.
I thought it was food in a vending machine. So there are vending machines that have sandwiches that have.
the way I would read that sentence
Me too.
It
Yeah,
is
that's the way
food.
I read. Food,
And
not,
it doesn't include candy, soft drinks sold through vending machines.
It's
Which
just
would be
food.
things like
That one is
sandwiches.
just food sold through vending machines, not candy and soft drinks. So like,
Yeah.
if there were a vending machine that had sandwiches in it, that would be what that exemption
That's how I read
covers.
it.
Yeah.
That's exactly, because there are vending machines that have sandwiches or different things in them. Which, yeah, I don't even know if we have, but, well, there might be some at the hospital, and that's about
Very
it.
few.
Not that I can even think of.
Yeah, there's very few.
are there
There
vending
would be
machines
very
in the
few.
schools?
I don't know.
I don't
No,
think so.
there aren't vending machines at school. That's,
They took
those
those out, right?
years ago, so the kids wouldn't be eating junk stuff.
But, soda pop machines?
So,
Okay.
not, well,
Which,
let me preface that by saying.
that's
unless
not
they
a big
changed
enough-
that stuff was taken out a long time ago.
I think if we start at the top, the first one, A, is probably the biggest conversation that we need to have right now, I think would be for us, because like what Ian just said, to shift the burden from the property owners, although they are going to consume food for domestic use.
Yeah. We don't get to give a residential exemption.
No.
The thing is, if you eliminate food, then what's left? That people coming in as tourists in this area are gonna be paying. They're not gonna be buying heavy farm equipment. They're not gonna be buying residential gas and heating fuel and those kinds of things. They're not gonna be buying that kind of stuff. They're gonna be buying food and gasoline, and they're gonna be going to restaurants. And so if you, and I'm not gung ho about paying more for food any more than the rest of you are, but if the intent of this is to raise money from other folks that are using our services, food's gonna be the major one that they would be spending on. And one other thing I would ask you too is that if you're looking at transferring and using this tax to pay the bulk of your costs for law enforcement, jail, drug task force, you've got to be able to generate enough funds to be able to cover that. And
So-
if you're not generating enough funds to cover that, then you're really not solving your problem.
And you don't want to have to go back to the voters a second time.
Oh, you've got one shot at this, in my opinion. And to be perfectly honest, because of the controversy that has occurred based on the newspaper article, the defunding, I use that word loosely, of the sheriff's department, this is a good marketing point for you. You can say, you know, we're not able to provide law enforcement at the level that we need and want to, or to cover the costs of our jail or our drug task force. We need this tax in order to be able to do that. We figured because some of the people that come into our community wind up needing those services either because of an emergency or, you know, they've done something they weren't supposed to do while they were here. And so, you know, you use the argument that it's paid for by not through property tax and not just the people who live here, but also everybody else that comes here that might use those services. But it's got to be enough to be able to, so that when you market this, you can tell people honestly in this community that it will raise enough money that you will be able to fully fund those things that you were saying you want to fund. And if you can't do that because you've exempted too many things,
Yeah, then we're going back.
people are going to be really unhappy.
There's a good argument for that. I think right now, for me, I would look at A and Q for sure. B, not a big deal. C, gas and electricity, that's just to all the people's homes. That's simple. Charitable organizations, I mean, all of the rest of the stuff makes sense. The only question I would have is K.
So commissioners, I think if you look at page 3, if you look at page 3 at the bottom under the public safety improvements,
You're gonna have to scroll down at Chavez. I don't have it in front of
I'm
me. I left my computer at home.
What page is that on?
page 3. So the PSIs, so for instance, Delta County, their exemptions were E, Mesa County, this is what they exempted, and then Montrose County, they didn't exempt anything.
So, wow. One exemption,
Yeah.
It's just the farm equipment.
which was E.
E was the only one Delta did, and Montrose didn't do any of them.
And we're almost neck and neck with Delta County. Size,
Yeah.
size of population, size of square miles, size of everything. I'm not sure that, maybe that's not a, and the hospital district only did Q. Or they,
The hospital district exempts
all of them
everything except Q. Yeah.
And how much did that bring in?
I'll go get that sheet. It was
Yeah.
right at 2 million.
It's about it's about $2 million here.
Half a million.
About $2 million here.
You know, if you're looking at farm equipment, because this is a farm economy here, and farm equipment's expensive. Those are big ticket, hence big tax items. I don't imagine too many tourists are going to be buying farm equipment. So if you did choose to exempt that would basically give a break to a segment of our community that traditionally does struggle, and it's not going to take away revenues from somebody else that's coming into the community and using services and then not paying for them.
If I remember right, it was like right at 2 million, right?
It's
Robert?
just about that, yeah. And that's for 0.4%.
And that was with the 0.4. So we'd be pretty consistent with that number from the hospital district. But if we went like Delta County and just did E, the other ones are not going to be a big deal. I would still like, I still like not taxing the consumption for fuel.
Exemption C.
The energy,
Yeah, the
Yeah.
energy, I like,
Yep.
I think that should be an exemption.
C and E.
Yeah. For me personally, I mean, I don't think we're trying to take it off of the property owners. We're not trying to burden that there. And that's for heating oil. That's for,
Based on what Christina said, is D, low volume sales by charitable organizations, is the hassle of trying to collect taxes on those kinds of things, is it going to generate enough revenue to,
yeah, I don't think it would.
so if it's not going to, then that's an easy give me.
So Karen, correct me if I'm wrong on exemption M, the sales for benefit of Colorado schools, school activities and school organizations. That was designed for like the kids going out and doing fundraisers, correct? Is that my understanding?
Christina?
That would be correct. The D covers other things like, the League of Women Voters selling T-shirts. We're never going to sell the minimum amount,
Sure.
which is about $45,000.
So I guess
You
my
know.
question for the commissioners is, we don't really want to tax little kids going out doing their
No. So
their
that would be
fundraisers.
an easy
Or
exemption.
the headache of trying to get the kids to be able to figure out how much tax they have to collect. It's just,
I mean, it'd be a good math experiment, but
yeah.
in reality, yeah.
And if you think that teachers' hair is gray right now, you expect them to do that, and that adds even more stress to their life.
I'm almost thinking that, I mean, I would be comfortable with keeping Q and A and letting the others go as exemption. So basically the rest of the list. Does that make sense to you guys? So Delta County exempted everything but E. Montrose County did nothing, and Mesa County exempted almost what we would be doing. 1, 2, 3.
No, Delta County only exempted E.
E, correct.
Yeah,
You said exempted everything
Right.
but E.
I would
And
say
they-
keep A and Q and we could exempt the others. So in other words, we could exempt B, C, D, G, H, K, L, M, S, T. If I'm looking at those exemptions properly. Other than K, that's kind of my question on K.
So, well, and renewable energy components are not something that somebody from out of town is going to buy either, I don't think. Well, I think what the exemption on renewable energy components is to encourage people to purchase, energy systems that are renewable, theoretically, because they're better for the environment.
But there's
So-
a lot of tax credits involved in those solar panels anyway.
Yeah.
Did I understand you to say that you don't have marijuana sales right now?
The hospital district and city does. County, we don't have a sales tax.
We don't have anything in the county.
No, I mean, are there no marijuana?
There are,
Okay.
because there
we
are
sure
in the
do.
municipalities. Yeah.
Okay.
8, 7 or 8?
7 in Cortez,
7
Now,
Cortez.
I'm not
are there
sure.
7 in Cortez or 6?
1 or 2 in Dolores, and then
That's gonna change.
3 or
So it would be a
4, I
revenue
guess.
generating item for you.
Yes.
It would be.
But we have no way to predict that.
And like it or not, or whatever you want to, whichever way you want to go, it does have specific impacts imposed to our hospital district, our law enforcement, fire, EMS. There's specific impacts generated by those sales.
It's still gonna charge.
Same with alcohol.
That's one of the ones with
Right.
the most direct
Right.
correlation between the sales tax could help cover costs that are related to
Right.
to that.
City market and buy it if it's unprepared. Like if you buy it.
So right now, you're looking at exempting
If we go 1.4,
exempting
you put all those
everything except A wouldn't be exempt, so I would pay this tax on food. If I were purchasing marijuana, I would pay that tax on that purchase. But any of these other things that I'm purchasing,
like what they did.
I would not pay a tax on. Is that correct?
That's correct.
I-
Now, do you have any idea how much tax you collect on food and marijuana? So you have some idea about how much you're going to collect, because that's going to determine what the tax rate needs to be.
Well, if we use, which is our determination, what we've used right now is the exemptions of the hospital district, because that's the only one that we have the data to go by. We don't have any other data in this community. So when we were coming up with the rate of the 1.4, that was what we were using, because their rate is 0.4, correct, Robert?
The hospital district's rate is
So that's how we put the numbers together for us. So if we then pull out it is going to make it, that number will be bigger, for sure. I don't know what that number is going to be, but it will grow.
So the hospital is 0.4%, is that right?
Correct.
Yes.
So this is roughly speaking, it's a little more than 3 times that 4.4%.
Yep.
Is my math correct on that?
Correct.
Okay, so, I realize it's not hard figures, but so whatever the hospital's collecting, then you just multiply that by 3, and then you'll get the figure that you would be a guesstimate of what you might collect with this tax at
It-
1 point.
It'd be close. If you did it by 3, it'd be 1.2. But we were looking at 1.4, which just roughly figuring it would be about 7.5 million. If you just tripled it to go to the 1.2, it'd be about 6.4.
Is that 6.4 million per
year, annually.
year?
So looking at the Montezuma County Hospital District, finishing December of 2023, they brought in right at 2.1 million. And that's at the 0.4. And now that we know that the exemption is the only exemption that they kept was Q, they exempted everything else, that's the number that would be consistent with this 2.1 number. So that's what we were making our basis off until I knew that only Q was the one that they kept out, is how we came up with our numbers.
So if food is exempt on theirs, then, again, I have a problem. If we exempt food, then the very people that we say are gonna have to pay this tax probably aren't gonna be paying it. Does that mean that you could reduce the tax rate from the 1.4% that you all are considering to a lesser amount? Because you'll be collecting tax on food?
I think what we can do is we can move within the mills every year, Karen. So when we adjust our mill levy every year, we have to do that in January, and right now, collectively, I think we're at, right at just under 15 mills.
Total.
Total, and that's with Road and Bridge, County General, Social Services, LEA, the four that we work with. We can move that downward. We don't have to go to the vote of the people to do that. We can just do that annually, once we know what the dollar amount is going to come in.
I think Christina has a question.
Oh, I'm shaking my head because I was thinking, you can't do that with the sales tax. So once you put that rate in, you're stuck with that rate.
Correct. So if we put the 1.4, it's going to be 1.4. However, what we can do, though, is then adjust the mill levy down without a vote. We can just do that every January.
On the property tax.
On the property tax, we intend to lower that property tax down for the people out here in the community.
Okay, let me throw this out. If you were telling people in the community that you are collecting the sales tax for the purpose of funding the sheriff's department, the jail, the task force, that money needs to be used for that. You cannot rob from that fund or from those generated to put in someplace else.
Right, but what that does is we can use all of that funding, and it won't fund 100% of it.
How much is it costing to run those entities right now?
7.2?
Well, with
7.275.
About 7,200,000.
Okay, now is that funding it, and I'm playing devil's advocate here, is that funding it at a level that your sheriff, who's the one that's having to provide the law enforcement and keep people safe here?
That's too subjective. There's no way to answer that because you continue to give more and they're going to take more.
Well, Jim,
I get what you're saying, but there's a, how do I want to put this?
Just say it.
Well,
Karen, our intent is to use that sales tax for the sheriff and the jail, and we know, and the task force, that's the only thing we can spend it for.
Right.
When we do this, okay? But the people, this is like $7 million. We're $1 million short. So that's $6 million difference. We can lower the mill levy down. We don't intend to grow the county government. We just want to shift the burden from the landowners out here that's been paying all the property tax for all these years to this sales tax to.
well, and it also relieves county general so that we can actually get some other things done that need to be done also. So I think I get what you're saying.
Well, but you've said in previous conversations that costs are continuing to go up, and they're going to continue to go up. It doesn't make any difference. They just are, whether we like it or not. And so my thought is that as you are looking, as you're making, you need to be, and I'm sure you are, you need to be looking at multiple years down the road.
Yep.
so that as the cost for law enforcement continues to increase, and the truth is that, at some point you may feel that X number of employees is adequate for 2024 or 2025, but we may get an influx in population or other things happen in this community where that's not a reasonable number anymore. You can't do the job with that many people. You have to add to your staff, or there are other costs that have increased to the point where you've just got to be able to cover those. And so my point is that, you keep talking about, well, we'll just lower the mill levy. I don't think that's going to help you very much, because the costs and all of those other things that property tax is still going to have to cover, they're going to continue to go up too. And so whatever it is that you decide to do and whatever it is that you decide to tax, you need to be very clear and very honest with the taxpayer that based on our very best efforts, knowing that this is an estimate, that we feel that we need to charge this much tax to generate, at this point, our expectation is this much income, and make sure that that's actually going to cover the costs of law enforcement moving forward, not just for this year or next year or even the year after that. I'm not talking about growing government, but I am talking about making sure that you cover the costs.
Correct, and I get it, and that's what we're trying to do. We're not going to grow it. We're just going to cover our costs, our inflationary costs that we have to do, because we know we're seeing inflationary costs throughout the county. So, point taken. I get it. I understand it.
And the other thing you talked about the last time with us was, that the taxpayer you're losing provides services free of charge that will no longer be there. And you have to be sure you cover those, because those are things that have to be done. I do have one question for you. Could you not get from the Department of Revenue some of the costs, the estimates on what these various exemptions cost in your county for the state?
Probably.
I'm sure we could.
At one time, they used to collect that data.
Yeah.
Okay, well, if you go back up to the top, Travis, basically what we have are the exemptions. Really, that's our discussion. We don't have to decide it today. It's just something to open up the conversation. We can look back at the Department of Revenue and see what these other items are, what they might bring in. I would like to have another conversation with Montrose County Commissioners, because they did nothing, and Delta only did E.
Is there a tax, the tax that you're talking about in Montrose, Jim, did they earmark that for just a particular department?
So if you look down there farther, I think 0.75, and I'm going off my memory now because I looked at this over the weekend, goes specifically just to the Sheriff's Department. Can you scroll down, Travis? It'll show that somewhere.
It does.
It should be on page 3, Karen.
I see it. But, okay, well, I'm seeing where Montrose County says point. Public safety.
It's 1.75 total, but 0.75 goes specifically to public safety. So that 100% of that goes, public safety,
Yeah,
which is going to be the Sheriff's Department and/or.
In that document, you can see on page 3, it shows the 0.75, which is the public safety improvement piece of that Montrose County. That
Right.
0.75, they exempt nothing for that. And then on page 12, you can see the other 1%, which is their regular sales tax, their general county sales tax, and they don't exempt that either.
Yeah, so they kept it consistent. They just exempted nothing.
And they exempted, well, Montrose, in their regular
Well,
sales
actually,
tax exempted
they exempted
motor
motor
vehicles and
vehicles
building
and building
materials,
materials.
That's
Tax
on
only.
that's on the use tax side, which I
Yeah,
think is
never
also
mind,
a
never mind.
conversation.
which we don't fall
Yeah.
under.
Okay.
Karen, that's a statutory thing. That's all they're allowed to tax on the use tax side.
Right.
And you do not want, you want to enact that if you can. And the reason for that is that otherwise your people will be going to another county to buy their car.
So just to get a sense of what we're looking at right now is we're looking at exempting everything except A and Q at this point.
Well, that was just me thinking out loud. That doesn't mean that I have any consensus at all. I mean, I think I can say Q for sure.
Yeah.
Because that's consistent with the numbers that we're looking at. And then it's just a matter of what do we want to do with the rest of them, guys?
Karen, this is Gerald
Yes.
Copenhaver. One thing, going back to us reducing that mill levy, we can reduce it and we can move it up and down to adjust to what we need, okay, later on. We don't have to lower it to a certain point. We're going to some degree, depending on how much this brings in and replaces what we're putting in the sheriff now. But we can always bring that back up if we need more money to put, to fund that.
To
We
fund
just
the
can't go
sheriff's
past what it is now,
Yeah.
but
can't
we
exceed
can lower
current.
it and bring it back up or move it to help adjust what we need, okay? That's why we were doing it this way, to give property tax owners some relief from this also, make it more palatable,
You bet.
okay?
Well, it's a good marketing tool. You know, you have lots of other people who don't live here that are paying for these services there, and they could potentially use them, but the entire burden isn't on just the people that live in this community.
Your problem becomes the PR point of view of, oh, I'm taxing food. And then you're saying, oh, well, I'm going to lower the mill levy rate in other places. And the people that don't pay property taxes are going to go, wait a minute, you told me that you needed this money for, and now you're giving a benefit to the property owners? You know, that's a PR problem.
Although I will say, and again, it's a devil's advocate sort of thing, if I am renting in Montezuma County, I know people who rent. I know that there are members of the community who believe that people who rent don't pay property tax because they don't own property. But in fact, that gets passed on.
Yeah, it's built in.
Yeah, you know, I mean, as a landlord, I'm going to pass that on because that's part of doing business. So,
Okay. Anything else, gentlemen? No. Gerald? Okay, well, I think we have food for thought. We don't have to make that decision today. Obviously, we can't make that decision today. But it was a first discussion on what the exemptions may or can be, I guess, through the exemptions that we have in front of us. So if you guys don't have anything else,
do you all have a tentative timeline at this point? Because we're at the end of April. I mean,
yeah,
we're at the end of February.
I think we have to have the ballot measure to the clerk's office by June.
yeah. So June is the end of the language that we have to have ready. And I'll speak to Ian about the language of what we're doing with the ballot language.
Yeah, and I would suggest that we have the language wrapped up by April, because it does need to go up to DOLA for review before it goes to the clerk anyway.
So yeah,
April
we're-
1st would be probably. a
We're
good-
probably saying April 1st, we'll have it wrapped up with everything, and ready to go. So we're getting real close,
Good.
getting real close.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you all. I appreciate Christina. Thank you, Karen.
Thank you again, ladies.
Thank you.
Talk to you later.
Bye.
Bye.
All right, gentlemen, I didn't want to cut it off too early, but was there anything else that?
No, we were rehashing and hashing
Yeah,
again.
kind of what I thought.